good morning or good afternoon or midday or whatever time it is for you. I am Tim McDonald, and I am here in St. Petersburg, actually at St. Pete Beach in Florida today, joining from my car because I lost my earbuds somewhere along the way on my way down here last night. And I am joined by two of my co-hosts from our organizing team on Connected Educator Appreciation Day and our monthly Connected Educator monthly meetups. Vladka and Michael, good morning.
Good morning, or good afternoon in Zagreb.
Did you see that automatic I just came in to start you?
Yeah, we don't have video yet, but we have another person joining us, which is going to be fantastic because it's going to make it even more of a global gathering here this morning, which we love on these Connected Educator Appreciation Day meetups is seeing educators come from all over the place. And you know, that's one of the things that I'm really excited about is how we all came together. We're going to see that. We're going to explore that today. This is kind of a little bit of a preview of what I'll be doing in Warsaw next month at CESA at their 2019 conference, is really exploring how we take our networks and how we build communities. And it's not just building it to build it, it's doing it with intention, with purpose, and seeing what can result from it. But it's not always about having a plan. And one of the things I love is how I've, in my experience, how I have seen and experienced different connections lead to things that I never thought was possible before. And an example of that is how I'm speaking at CESA this year. It came from a connection earlier this year with Vladka and Michael. And it just started as an idea to do an online event. And during our planning, during our talking, we all got to know each other a little bit better. We got to hear each other. We got to listen to each other. And that resulted in Vladka actually mentioning me to somebody else and saying I would be a great speaker to come speak at CESA. Now, I never knew what CESA was. I'm still going to learn a lot more, I'm sure, when I'm there. But it's amazing that if you would have asked me this time last year, what is CESA and do you have intentions of speaking there, I would have had no idea what you were talking about, and I would have laughed because I'm like, why are you even bringing that up? But what happens when we open ourselves up to an opportunity is amazing things can happen. And I think that's the important thing that I think all of us can get out of this, and what I want to kind of explore today. And the reason why I have this first question, and the reason why I haven't just asked Vladka and Michael to introduce themselves yet, is because the first question is something that I love asking with different groups, because I find that the answers are so incredible and help us understand why we're all there. That is the amazing part to me, and one of the things that I'm really excited about looking at. Hey, we got video, but he's still muted. So, but everybody else is too. So, hey, yes, he sees us. All right. So, let me start with the first question. And, I really want you guys to answer this, in a way that is honest to yourself, because that's going to help us get to understand you a lot better. But I just don't want to know where you are from, but I want to know, how did you get here today? And think about that. It's not just you saw an invite. It's like, who did you see that invite from, right? Did somebody tell you about it, or did you find it online just when you were searching for a certain hashtag or a certain phrase? Did a friend of a friend mention it to you? And like, really, let's get in depth of looking back to what brought you here right now today. And so I shared a little bit of my story, and I'll share a little bit more. But, Vladka, why don't we start with you and tell us where you're at right now and how you got to be where you're at right now instead of going on that track with your husband.
Well, hello everyone once again. My name is Vladka Butkovic. I'm from Zagreb, Croatia. Well, it's a long story, and then again, it's a short one, how I ended up here. I've been a teacher for 26 years. Originally, I'm an English as a second language teacher, and an art, I mean, I graduated art history, which was always left aside. Now it makes more sense again. I've been running my own center of education for the past 20 years, but it can be a very lonely place. You know, doing things your own way has its advantages, and then again, you need someone to tell you. Michael is very good at that. Tell you, frankly, what he thinks about it. Reconsider this. How about this? You know, just I missed the connections. I really, really missed the connections. I was lucky enough in 2015 to attend the my first annual CESA conference. It was held in Dubrovnik. And I learned about CESA through Kathy Stetson, who's the executive director at CESA. And that was my turning point. Totally shifted everything. Well, it was, first of all, it was very nice approval, so to speak, of what I have already been doing at my school. And then again, new inputs, new people, new ideas, and just endless connections among people. So CESA, I started attending CESA conferences. The next year I was already the presenter at CESA, where I could pitch some of the ideas that I was trying with my staff and my students, and had that open conversation of whether that works in different circumstances, different environments, and so on. At CESA, I met Deb Etchinson, who was in the organizing team of EdChange Global, and I became part of the organizing team, and that's where I met Cassie Reeder, and Cassie blew me away. So Cassie would be the first person that just made me stop and realize what the possibilities are and how much just appreciation is out there if you know how to search. So, you know, searching through the correct hashtags, so learning all that. Twitter is totally not in the game in Croatia. You have to teach people how to use that in order to connect through that. And they're already fed up with so many different networks. But I'd say learning how to use Twitter, it's like having a free pass in an endless library of ideas. And at EdChange Global, that's where Michael and I met. And you and I got connected right after that. And all of a sudden, you know, there were people who think alike, who act fast, and are very productive without putting a burden on somebody else. So Connected Educators Appreciation Day ended up being just the right format. And, you know, the relationships. It really doesn't feel like we haven't met in person yet. So that's it. It has brought a lot of change into my school. We work with around 500 students, and I do teacher trainings too, communication skills training, and it has all changed since I started international connections and collaboration.
I love it. I don't know. I'm not on Twitter because where I'm at, with my laptop, I need to either have the screen open in the app or look at Twitter. So I can't do both, and I want to pay attention to what's going on here. But I am almost positive that Michael tweeted, because you dropped a mic with one of those quotes there, and I'm sure Michael sent that out already. So I think Twitter is the library of endless possibilities. I think that was.
I haven't come across any other platform that is so open to any questions. My recent, I don't know what the word to use for it. I'm reading David Ito's book now. What if everything we knew about education is wrong? That feeling that you can, share an idea, enthusiasm brought through that book, and tag David Ito and get his response immediately and his reaction to it. I mean, where else can you get that? And I love it that nobody feels intruded in any way. There's this elegance in communications, or maybe I'm just blessed with, my group of people that's growing all the time, but everybody's so, there's enough of everything. There isn't too much of anything. You can get in and get out of any conversation, and then you can ask for an advice and get it quickly, basically immediately. I love it, really.
Well, me too. My license plates actually used to say "tweet me" in the U.S. back like 8 years ago when Twitter was in its early days, and I'd have my name on there, so at license plates people would take out their phones and I'd see them take pictures of my license plate behind me. So Michael, oh yeah, Michael, tell us how you got here and where you're from. And I love how Vladka did it, because she brought in back from how it all started, and I think that's important to understand, so for everybody, and it helps us reflect on it too. So tell us about how you got here today.
Okay, that's a good question too. I have 20 some odd years education. This is my daughter. 20 odd years education, from teaching in Canada to England, Poland, and Scotland. You need to go first. And I think that because of the variety that I've had there, it really allowed me to see what's good, what's bad, and what's in the middle even of what people do. I had, like I said, primary schools in Scotland, but I taught in high school in Canada. I taught high school as well in England, and high school as well in Poland. And it was the different ways that management run things, the different ways that parents expect, and even the kids, after being in the system for so long, what they're used to and what they know, what they're comfortable with. I recall teaching in Poland, and when I arrived there, all that the kids were given was a number. So they did their work, they submitted their work, and they got a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, and that was it. And then they moved on with the next lesson the next day. When I started working with them, I didn't give them a number, I gave them a comment. And the comment was what they've done, what was done well, and how they can go better next time. They wanted their number. And it wasn't until maybe a month or two, maybe three or so months into it, that they began to appreciate what the comment was doing for them in terms of actual feedback, in terms of what to do to get better. I gave it a number 2 initially, and I kept giving the number because it was required of me with the school, but I thought that the number was just too final, and whereas a comment can allow you to grow. I think it's through that idea of not making a remark or not making a grade a final thing that was what really spurred me forward in terms of my journey. I went with the classroom. I was in Scotland for many years, more than 10 I think it was now, and I found that it was unchanging. And the person, I got to mention his name, William Jenkins. I connected with him in Scotland. He is a guy living in Glasgow who I never met, and he reached out to me on Twitter about Skype and Skype in the classroom. And he has one hell of a story to tell with what different councils give for their kids and what different councils put forward as important, where some councils have a plethora of resources and teachers who are training them, whereas other councils don't put it at the forefront, and so therefore the kids suffer. They might have the money, they might even have the resources, but the teachers are stuck. And the teachers aren't willing to change and go beyond the 4 walls of the classroom. So he told a story about how he took his son out of school one day and took him to a different school in the same city, so that his son would have the experience of what other classes can do. And so he could see, I think it was Microsoft? Maybe I'm wrong. I'm thinking I'm making up stories. But the class that he went to was doing a Skype visit within the classroom. And I followed suit with that one. His story was quite cool. So I followed suit with that one. And in my subsequent years of teaching, I had 6 or 7 mystery Skype visits for classes, and we did some virtual field trips too. That wasn't enough, because when you hang up, you're back in your classroom and your kids are there with you. So I looked further afield, and I got an offer from a company called CEMM, and they said to me, "We'd like you to work for us." I said, "Oh, wow, on you go." So that got me out of the classroom, and it got me engaging with teachers every single day. I couldn't have done the work I did with CEMM without having links to other teachers who knew better than me for their area of the woods. I was working with teachers in Florida, in Indiana, in Texas, Virginia. I think altogether there were 9 states, as well as the Common Core, 2 provinces in Canada, the 4 countries of the UK, Australia, New Zealand, and Singapore. And that network that I had to manage, build, and grow was wonderful. And I actually kept a number of the people that I've contacted to work with CEMM. They're now part of my Twitter network. Beyond that, I've now branched out for myself. And since last summertime, when I came to EdChange Global, meeting Vladka, Meeting Cassie, and you're right, Cassie's amazing. Cassie, the energy that she brings beggars belief. What she's able to do and what she puts herself out to do, without even knowing if she can do it to begin with. And she does it. It's wonderful. So Cassie's amazingly cool. I think I'm here now because I have seen what others can do, and I say to myself, why can't I do that? So with what, again, Tim, Vladka, and I, and Alamailakan, when you came for our meeting last October, we brought together 6 continents of educators and people interested in education, and we shared views that were diverse, but sounds really weird, but they were, because despite having a similar theme, we came from different places, we're going to different places, and the journey between X and A and B have been all over the place. But it is the commonality for educators and what we want to do for those with whom we work, either as colleagues or as learners. It's just, I think, universal. So I would say that I'm now where I am and still growing. I now work with teachers again as part of a network, as part of a community. And we'll get to that later, I guess. So, and I love it. And I think that I have difficulty now thinking of myself back in the classroom with 4 walls and 30 kids, the same 30 kids every day. I have difficulty thinking of myself planning for 1 year group for a year, while just now I'm planning for 5-year groups in a day. It's, again, different experiences I've had have only been available through the networks I've built, through the communities I've built, through people I've met or not met yet. But I will one day. That's an awful lot of talking. I'll stop now.
Well, you could have kept going. It's like a story, right? And I love one of the things you said was, you can't see yourself going back into a classroom with 4 walls again. And I can't help but think to myself, well, why do we have to have a classroom with 4 walls, right? Why are we confined by that? And it's just interesting to me, because as I've surrounded myself and connected with so many other educators, I start hearing this recurring theme. And it's about, how do we create this atmosphere, not only for ourselves because we yearn for it, but for the students, right? How do we allow them to create that? And I know from so many younger people that I meet, they're already doing it outside the classroom. So why aren't we bringing it inside the classroom? And I think as we all start having these conversations, hearing our stories of how we got to where we're at today, we start creating that awareness and appreciation. Because too many times we just show up with the agenda of what we're supposed to be talking about, and we don't stop to understand how we all got to where we're at and the lessons that we learned along the way. And with both of your stories, I heard exactly similar themes about what I'd mentioned when I introduced myself, right? I never would have a year ago mentioned or thought it was possible for me to be sitting here talking with both of you and everybody today. But I opened myself up to connecting. I opened myself up to possibility. I opened myself up to opportunity. And that's when things happen. And it's not by keeping yourself in that box of the 4 walls. It's about opening up and expanding beyond that. So, and I know I did this on our Connected Educator Appreciation Day back in October, so I'm probably not going to get your name correct again. But would you want to take yourself off mute and pronounce it for me so I can make sure I get it correct?
I'll just say hola.
Hola?
Yeah, that's okay.
Oh, well, I can pronounce hola.
Yeah.
So it's great to have you here this morning, or this afternoon, maybe for you. But tell us, your story about how you got to sitting here with us right now today. How did you end up here?
It's about 20 minutes after 1 here. It's an afternoon here in Nigeria. So the journey started a long time ago. I think it's been 14 years I started teaching. And the first day I stepped into the classroom, I told myself, I don't want to be that same teacher. I don't want my class to be predictable. I'm not a guy that likes sticking to the rules, as in the conventional rules that everything must follow this particular pattern. So since then, I understood the fact that we are in a global village, and we need to start preparing our students for the future. And the future we're talking about, it has to do with our students interacting with other students and in other places in different parts of the world. I know for a fact that students in Canada, in US, in Nigeria would definitely end up competing for the same jobs, would end up crossing paths in different conferences and different places. So digital global citizenship has been key in my classroom. So that we've been doing since I started teaching. I love interacting with teachers, whether online or offline. So I think a few months ago, I was invited on Twitter. I think it was on Twitter that Michael Sinclair sent me a message on Twitter about Connected Educators Appreciation Day. And I said, wow, I would love to be a part of it. And that was it. And since then, we've been participating in different chats like MSFT, EDU chats. So I got a message in my inbox early this morning, that this will be taking place if I'll have a chance to just join in. I'm saying, why not? I love meeting people. I love networking. I love engaging my students in global projects. So in my classroom, we work with students, we work with teachers from different places. I'm like, okay, maybe a teacher is in UK and say, wow, I'm starting a project and I need people to join in and work on the project together. I tell my students, wow, we've got something to do, and they love it. So just like you said, teaching doesn't necessarily need to start and end in the four walls of the classroom. No, it shouldn't be. Where students, they're even tired of sitting in a box. They want to get up and move round and round and do things for themselves. And we were talking about preaching 21st century skill. We want them to learn the skills of collaboration, critical thinking, creativity, communication, and all that, and how best to put this to practice by interacting with students from other places, by spreading empathy, by interacting with people from different places with different languages and all that. And technology in a way has been helping. I know for a fact that Microsoft recently introduced their what's it called, this language translator, that even if you are having a Skype call with a school or group of students speaking different language, you can leverage on technology to still have your class session despite the fact that the two groups speak different languages. So these are some of the various things that we enjoy when you try to leverage on technology to expose your students to a couple of things, and in a way
Uh-oh.
We might have gotten frozen.
it's helped them because hello, am I still on?
You're freezing up a little bit, so I think you're okay.
I think somebody called in. I'm using a mobile.
Oh.
So somebody called me, so I have to decline the line. So as I was saying, how best to teach our students some of these soft skills than expose them to all these things. Let them experience it firsthand. So instead of saying, my students, sit down, I want to teach you the countries and continents of the world. When you have Skype call with a particular group of students in a country, for example, the students will learn a whole lot about that country and about the continent. So instead of you sitting them down and let them memorize and preach rote learning, these guys will learn firsthand that today we travel to Canada and we're able to interact with somebody in Manitoba or Ottawa and all that. And that will stay. They need to pick up certain things. They need to learn about the education in UK, in US. The first time I have Skype call with a school in Alaska, and my student got talking with the other guys there, and they told them that the teachers in US own the classes, meaning that the student will need to run into a math class, then after the end of the period, they move into another class. But here in Nigeria, the students own the classes. They stay in the classes, the teachers will move in during the math period, will move in, teach them mathematics, lead the class, the English teacher will move in, and the students in Alaska were like, oh, we love that. And my student here to be saying, oh, we love a situation whereby the teachers will be the one that owns the classes and all that. So the student will learn a lot when we collaborate online and offline and even work on projects. We've gotten a situation whereby students here work with another student in different parts of the world to talk about how they use green energy, how they use energy, deal with sustainable development goals and stuff like this. So some things do not affect us here, but we as individuals in Nigeria, we are part of the planet Earth. So we all need to contribute and do all that. So engaging our students in global citizenship is key. And that I love doing. I've met a couple of teachers via Twitter. Twitter, it's like, I don't know, the center of all those kind of collaboration these days, that you can always join the conversation. There is always conversation every time, anytime. Even if you're not signed up to join a particular chat, you can just search for a certain hashtag and you see different conversations going on every now and then. So I think that is what we've been doing. And so when I got the message this morning, I said, why not? This is an opportunity for me to still learn one or two things and network. So I decided to say, oh, why not? Let me just join in. After all,
I was just waiting for him to finish, but I guess he froze up again. But I just
lecture is supposed to take place today in Nigeria, and it hasn't. Hello?
Oh yeah. No, you froze up. You froze up again. So I was waiting for you to finish, and then it froze up.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just so great to hear this, your enthusiasm and the differences that we can expose ourselves to that help us understand, how things don't have to be a certain way. Right. And that to me is, I learned from a 13-year-old girl when I went to an event in Downingtown, Pennsylvania. And it was the day after school graduated for middle school here in the US. And so it was a voluntary day for students to show up if they wanted to. And there was about 150 students that showed up on their first day of summer, right? Summer break. And they all were there. And one girl came up to me and she made a comment that I'll never forget. She said, my idea is that as a young person, we should all have the opportunity to travel the world, because that's how we learn. That's how we understand how people that are different from us, what their cultures are, how they act, how they view things, and it helps us grow as individuals. And she said that to me. Here's a 13-year-old talking to, at that time I wasn't quite 50, but I was almost 50. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, what wisdom she has at that age that I'm just starting to understand at my age, and it's incredible how we can do that. And so, one thing that I think is important, because there are people that aren't, I've seen this throughout my career in the last 15 years, is people look at me and they go, well, Tim, it's easy for you. You know all these people, right? You can just reach out to them and connect with them. But it never started that way. It started with me. It started with me being open to look for other people, to search for other people, and to start connecting with other people. And obviously there's a lot of different platforms, but what I want to talk about isn't necessarily, we can mention the platforms, but it's like, how do you as educators, bring your students outside of that classroom? What methods, what ways do you do that? And, maybe, Michael, we could start with you on this one. When you were in the classroom and even in your work now with working with teachers, how are you seeing teachers bring their students outside of that classroom in the most effective ways, not just any way, but in the most effective way?
A couple of things that I've done in the past, and this is mostly, I'd say, or not mostly, a lot of it's through tech. I think that it's always really important, though, not to neglect non-tech. You can go to the park. That's going outside. That's removing the walls. We had sessions of mathematics, and we would learn about shapes in the playground and looking at where can you find a triangle, where can you find a square, where can you find two triangles together. This sort of thing, it makes it real, makes it tangible, makes it not artificial, because you're not using the plastic shapes you have in your tray that you've sorted the week before to be used in the classroom. You're finding natural examples of this abstract concept of a triangle. With the tech side of things, I'd say that the possibility of going beyond the world exists. We had space lessons, and we flew through the solar system. And we were on a rocket ship and we saw the different planets along the way. We saw the satellites around the planets. We looked at different sizes of planets in that way, rather than just looking in a book. And I'm not saying don't look in a book. The looking in the books, I think, it is one, meaningful to do, and two, also necessary to have that engagement with text that isn't moving, that isn't having to be turned on, and doesn't require batteries to charge so you can see it. But to have the more moving experience too, I think, is also for learners who have different ways of engaging with learning. I think having that video, having the audio, having the interactivity is important in today's technological age. That's what I would say, the learning that happens there for a person. But when it comes to beyond just the one, and Alamalakan, he was showing a lot of different examples, wonderful, that he has used for building digital citizens for the future. When you have, you're learning about a country, rather than taking a text or even the site online or something like, or a video about the country, you talk with the country. That's just, why not? Why wouldn't you? If you have that opportunity, that possibility, that's what everyone should be doing. That's what every teacher should be doing, rather than just using their plan from last year or from 10 years ago, as it can happen. To push yourself, to change, to grow. Your kids will grow too. Without modeling that, I want to get better. I want to learn more. If you're modeling as a teacher, I know everything, I'm going to tell it to you so you can know everything too. That's the wrong way around. That's just a backward system now. That might have worked when it was more of an industrial revolution, when it was more of an office worker mentality for the world. But now, as Alma saying, we got teachers, kids in Nigeria, the States, Canada, UK, Croatia, parts of Asia, they're all going for the same job. And they can because things are remote. They can because travel isn't an impediment anymore. You got kids who are getting out of university 23, 22, 21 sometimes. They're happy to get on a plane and go to a different country because of an opportunity. Why not? I think when I was younger, that was a big. My dad left for Canada in '82 with his wife and 3 sons, and that was terrifying. And we went to Canada. Lovely place, Canada. I'd go there again. But it was, again, why are you leaving? Our system's good. Your job is good. Your community is good. Because we can. And we might get better there. We might have more, not more money, but a better quality of life if we go somewhere else. And that was just your bunkers. You have enough. Your life is good. But again, why not push yourself? That's what I would say. Connecting through what Al-Malikans was saying again with Skype is outstanding. I had a bit of that at the end of my teaching career in the classroom. If I had stayed in the class, if I was still in the classroom, I would expect to have them on a monthly basis, to have liaisons with experts, with Skype masters, with the different countries, and talking with the specialists there. So that, again, the kids are learning real stuff, not something someone wrote 10 years ago that maybe isn't valid anymore, but real stuff now. That's what I would do.
So Faika, how about you? What ways are you finding to effectively connect outside of those 4 walls?
Well, Michael said one of the key things is that we teachers have to model this kind of building community, international connections. I do teacher training, and I try to train my students into, just a second. We are teaching our students to learn how to connect globally. And there are 2 quite opposite problems that we come across. Teachers are pretty much afraid of being exposed in such a way. So totally different situation. I have to explain to teachers that there isn't that much criticism out there. You can get exposed and not get hurt or attacked by your views. It's perfectly fine to have a Skype call with someone, and it's all about the topic. It's not about you. So, but you know, it's for people who's leaving the comfort zone. So that's one of the obstacles that we have. Not with my staff. I'm happy that my staff is already used to these things. But public school teachers in Croatia very often don't feel comfortable in joining in. On the other hand, you have students who take all this technology for granted without putting it in good use. And what they lack is the skill of giving 5 key sentences of what they're doing, how they're doing it, why it's important, why is it important for them, stuff like that. So we use Skype Classroom. We joined Mystery Skype. We are joining Empatico. There are wonderful projects out there that we all learned about via Twitter. But we realized that all of our students, regardless of the courses that they take, had to get the training into how to explain what you're all about and what your work is all about. So they need that. They need basics, as Ola said. They need basic skill set in order to be ready to go out there. And that takes a lot of discomfort away once they're sure of how to explain their projects, the topics, and so on. So there's, it's a chain reaction. You initiate, let's do a Skype call, and you end up realizing that students freeze because where do I start? And they lose 10 minutes of the conversation. Who's going to speak first? And you have a teacher hiding behind the students. Kids get exposed, it's fine, but don't get me in front of the screen. So it is challenging, but whoever joined in eventually really found it a lot of fun. Another challenge is, how do you do that and not take away from the curriculum, because you're always short with time to go through stuff. That's one of the most common questions that I get from teachers that I train outside of our school. It can be done. Definitely, it can be done, and it has to be done because the world is way bigger than their backyard, and our students have to see that. But then again, you don't.
I was going to ask you a question though about that, just because you probably know more than I do. Is why can't that be part of the curriculum?
The thing is that sometimes you just have to bring them new information. You can share the information once you master it, and at least you have something to talk about. So once you initiate a topic, fine, but that first part of it has to be, with kids, they have their own needs. You have a classroom that's mixed, let's say 15, 20 kids. We are happy in my school, there is no classroom bigger than 12 kids. And even within those 12 kids, you have a child that needs different approach, another child different approach. You have to bring them to common ground in order to, for all of them as a class to join and share their levels. And they feel overly exposed. If they're still not certain of the topic or the project that they're working on, the child that doesn't feel comfortable with it will never speak, to a kid in the States via Skype because he doesn't know still what to do. So there's always this step in the learning process where they need their safe environment. And once they feel safe, then they can share and do that. Our public school system is a different thing. It's packed with topics that should be thrown out of the program. So that's another reason it's difficult for them to join in, because they never have enough time. That's another thing. But mostly they don't know, as you said, they don't know how to plant that in the curriculum. Plenty of work, all the the things you go through again, the drill as we call it, can be done with somebody on the other side of the globe, and it's much more exciting. No, I mean, it's different kind of a challenge, and you polish different kinds of skill sets with that kind of communication compared to, do you really know the topic now? Are we okay? Are we good to go to the next one?
Yeah, it's interesting as you say that. I remember before I met my wife, I was going back to school to become a teacher, actually. And I remember one of my education classes in college, our instructor actually told us, because there was a bit at this time, we might laugh now, it was talking about allowing the students to use calculators in math. Mm-hmm. And her, as people were against that, she said, it's not important the tool that you use. It's important that you know what to put in the tool to get the result that you want.
Exactly.
And if you can understand that, it doesn't matter what you're using to get the result, if you understand the concept behind it. And I think that's, I mean, as you were talking, I'm like, that's exactly what we're talking about now. It's not about the tool or the platform or anything else. It's about, do you have the basic understanding of why you're doing it and using the most effective tool to get the end result that you want to get.
Yeah,
definitely.
Sorry?
I said definitely. During PD, because I train a lot of teachers too, especially on how to use technology in the classroom. So I do tell them it's not about technology. The technology is not the main thing. Technology is just like an icing on the cake. So before you even jump out using a particular tool, you want to sit yourself down. Why am I using this tool? What and what do I want to achieve? What activities are we going to do when we are connected with another classroom? So a lot of teachers are eager to like, yes, we want to connect with a school in US or with a school in Canada and all that. But you want to ask, what do you really want to do? Fine, you've got the technology, you're sitting in front of a computer system and you're connected. So what are you going to be talking about? So they need to sit themselves down and plan. Pedagogy is key too. So how do we use the tool so that we achieve the necessary goal? So there are a lot of activities. When we talk about Sky, we got Mystery Sky, field trip, inviting a guest into your classroom. So we can still sync that with what's in the curriculum. Vlakta talk about empathical. Empathical too, they have their own activities. They have activities that talk about how people play. They have activities that talks about landmarks around the schools, that talks about festivals, that talk about power and all that. So we need to like look at the curriculum. Let's say, for example, I teach physics and we're talking about electricity. So instead of me just saying I want to connect with a particular class and just talk and talk and talk about things that has nothing to do with the topic at the moment, we can discuss about how people in other places, how they generate electricity in their various countries. Maybe they use solar, maybe they use the normal dam and hydro and all that. So we can as well still look at the curriculum and then look at activities that we can work around that curriculum. So during the connection, we are not too distant away from the curriculum, but we are still trying to marry the two and ensure that, yes, we are working in tandem with the curriculum, and at the same time, our students are engaging other students from different parts of the world. If, for example, let's say I teach, there's a particular topic that has to do with health, I can just invite a doctor into my classroom via Skype, and that person will need to entertain questions from the students and all that. So it has to do with the pedagogy, how you really want to plan your activities during the connection. Because here in Nigeria, we've got the best of plans, but implementation is usually the problem. If you check a curriculum, you have everything spelled out, but you'll be like, who are the teachers that will implement this? And where are the facilities for them to use? We have the plans. If you look at our curriculum, they even spell it out that students should go on field trips, should go on excursion and all that. But we cannot actually take students off the campus without getting permission from the ministry and all that. But with technology now, we can actually do that. So we do tell the teachers, wait, we want you to use technology, but we need you to understand the basics. Understand why you are using this particular tool and understand how you really want to use this tool to still achieve the set instructional objectives and the curriculum. So we need to like weigh that. So when you're using the technology, plan what you really want to do and engage with the teacher in the other hand too. So this is what we really want to do. And probably at the end of the day, you can just initiate a kind of a project-based learning, while the group of students can still work together on a project. For example, maybe you teach English, for example, literature, and you want them to write a book. Maybe the students here will write the first chapter, the student at the other hand will write the second chapter, and you can leverage on tools like Microsoft Office Online to do things like that. So we need to like look at why we are using the technology and how you really want to ensure that we are not too far away from the curriculum while we're using technology.
I love that, because it's like, you know, I'm listening, and, you know, my mind initially goes to how I use, you know, technology and how been brought into a classroom, you know, which is, you know, via Zoom, via FaceTime, via Hangouts, via Skype. You know, I've been brought in, and a lot of times it's not planned. It's just spontaneous when the opportunity presents itself that somebody I know that's in the classroom connects with me and brings me inside the classroom. And it allows me to understand what the students are doing, but it hopefully my expertise, you know, can you know, and knowledge can be shared with them. So it's pretty fascinating. And I know we're not going to get to all the questions today, but that's okay, because this is like more important than what we have planned. It's like learning these things and exploring them. I think, you know, one of the things that I'm really excited about as far as connecting outside the classroom is like looking at the possibility of using virtual reality, and you know, and allowing students to be immersed in a culture outside of the classroom, even though they're sitting inside the classroom. And I mean, we're not quite there where it's like mainstream yet, but I think we're not that far away from it, and I think it's going to be amazing what that can do. I mean, I heard the guy that started Charity Water, he actually talks about the most effective gifts he can give the benefactors is a trip to one of the plants where they install, you know, a well of water, and in a place. And he goes, because that means that they'll donate more, they'll invest more, they're more invested in the cause. What he can't do is he can't do that for everybody because of the cost. What they're finding is they can use virtual reality to help bring people there from their own place to experience very similar to what the people that are actually being sent there to do. And so I think there's a huge opportunity to look at as far as how we connect outside the classroom with that moving forward. But the next question I want to get is really talking, because there's two terms that I know get thrown around a lot, and I think it's important for us to start understanding the difference. So I don't want to skew the conversation by giving my thoughts on it. So maybe we'll start with you, Ola. How would you define the difference between community and network?
It's a tough one, but let me try. When we talk about, I think the network, to me, I want to believe the network is like the broader, the bigger platform where you have pool of people. Then in a network, you cannot have community. And in a community, you have people of like minds. Probably we've got network of teachers. For example, I've got millions of teachers in my network. Then I now have communities in that same network. And in that community, probably I have like 50 teachers that are into programming. I've got 50 teachers that are promoting a particular thing entirely. Then I see that as a community where we engage often. So the network is not that we really engage often, but I have people in my community that when I need somebody, I can look through my network rather and say I have somebody there. But in a community, it's like a closed group where you can always relate with the people in the community. I'm just speaking my mind. I'm not sure whether I'm saying the correct thing, but to me, I believe community is like a group that is smaller, that you work together often. But network is like the bigger pool where you can draw out people into your community.
That was great. I think you stole part of my answer, man. Network and community. I think that what I would say is very similar to that. And again, this is just from my perspective because I don't have a dictionary here to check. When I think of network, I think of people I might know or might have heard of. People who do something that interests me, and so I might follow it. A network is, like you suggested, I think, Ola, I think it's bigger. I think it can go across many different areas. And I think it might even have people who are completely unrelated, but they're linked for me. When it comes to community, I think these are people that probably I know better. I've heard of them, but I've also engaged with them. They're more than just people I would follow, people I would probably trust more. When it comes to community, I would expect to engage with them, and I would expect them to engage with me. I'd probably want to learn from them, and I'd probably hope that they might learn something from me. You were saying about how you would be in contact with them more regularly. That's certainly true. There are those in a network that I have on Twitter, for instance, who I followed, and I read their posts and their tweets. I've never contacted them personally. people in my community I have. People in my community I expect to contact them because I chose them from among the network people that I have. There you go.
Yeah, I think, you need network in order to build a community, if we're talking about online community. But yeah, network is like a go-to place if you're looking for a quick answer. But if you want to make a difference, I think you build your own community, because then it's relationships. It's feeling responsible to people you get connected with and you stay connected with. And I think community is more about openly sharing, being open to be there for, a quick call or a helping hand, open criticism. You put aside, for my international community, people put aside cultural differences, brings us a lot of fun. And you just speak your mind. There's an expression in Croatian that cannot be translated. But without any hidden thoughts, you're out there. You always assume positive intention in that communication, and I think that's necessary for a global community. We are so different. We can't even assume maybe second thoughts that you might have of what I'm saying, but I just can hope that you read that I'm here with my best intention, and then we can build together and change something or let go of something because it might offend someone. But that the whole game, this interaction of different people. I mean, there are 4 people here in these screens. We're on 3 different continents. No way we can tell what every one of us is thinking right now. But we can assume that this is a common ground. That common ground, I think, is what anchors us within this little international community. That makes so much sense. Yeah,
I love it.
Without networking, you never grow out of your little, bubble. You have to reach out, at least to check whether your community is insane or perfectly normal people.
Well, in simple terms, I define, and I'll kind of elaborate a little bit more, but in simple terms, I think network is all based upon relationships, and community is based around purpose.
Yeah.
And to kind of expand on that a little bit more, if you look at a network, it's all based upon who you know. And those relationships are the spoken nodes that connect us all together within our network. And so how we all got here today was maybe didn't start because of our network, but it certainly got us here together because of our network and who we knew and how we invited people to get here. I view networks as very relationship based. They're very static and linear. You can see the connections. You can see how people are connected. I mean, look at like what LinkedIn does, right? I mean, they tell us we're first connections, second connections, or third connections. And so we actually, they're telling us in our heads how we are connected and who we are connected through. A community is more of a relationship based, where it's more emotional. It's not transactional. It's emotional. It's fluid. It's all based around shared purpose. So I can go, I always use this example, right? Like if you go to a community swimming pool, why are you all there, right? You're all there probably because it's hot, unless if you live in like Scandinavia and you swim in cold water, but we'll forgive them for a minute. but if you are going to a pool, it's probably because it's summertime, it's warm out, you want to cool off, you want to have, want to just have a relaxing time and have some fun. When you go to that pool, there's a whole bunch of other people probably that you don't know, but they're probably there for the similar reason that you are, is because it's hot out and you want to find a way to cool off. You can connect with those people. You can have fun with those people. You start to form relationships with those people. But as soon as you leave, as soon as the winter comes and it's not cool out or not warm out anymore, you don't have that same community that you did around the pool. In a network, that always remains. that stays, unless if one of the people is removed, then all your connections with the other people that were through that person are gone, unless if you've established a direct connection with them. And so it's this whole thing of, you know, networks are much more predictable and communities are not. But the beauty of community is the opportunity that you have. And it's awesome to see how we can use those communities and kind of expand it out. So I could probably talk on this for like another hour, but I'm just looking at the time going, we got 5 minutes left. So you know, one thing that I think, you know, just to kind of, you know, wrap this up, I think it'll be a good question to ask is, you know, as we're talking about connecting with people, I'm always curious to know, like, if there's one person that you could connect with anywhere, doesn't matter who they are, you know, who would it be and why?
Oh,
So who wants to start with that?
just one person.
One?
Just one. Maybe Sir Ken Robinson.
Who is it?
Sir Ken Robinson.
And why would you want to connect with them?
The man is like a god when it has to do with education and how to reform education. So I would really want to invite such a person to probably a PD where we have hundreds of thousands of teachers to really gear them up so that teachers can learn on how we can come together and make that change as regards education in Nigeria, in Africa, the world as a whole.
Nice. Vladka?
Huh. Well, I connected with David Ditto. I would love to have him over a glass of wine and long talk about his views of education. I like that he's so critical of the trends in education. You can see that he's a person who has been in the classroom for years now. So much common sense and so little fashionable attitudes that I love about him. So it would be great to, get him over, invited, and him on the other side of the table and continue the talks.
Nice. Michael?
I think I'd like to meet Richard Branson. I think that he's an interesting man who has overcome a lot of diversity. He's also upended a lot of status quo and done things that people frowned on before he did them, and now people do them because he did them and succeeded. I think that it is the creativity to go from the beginning to the end of his view that likely very few others can visualize as he can. I think along with this is face with regard to learning and how that can for many be such a stopper and such a roadblock in life because you're told regularly you can't or you won't or you're dumb. And resiliency is amazing. Resiliency is an amazing thing for individuals that combats that naturally without having to fight back. You know it's not true. And there's this resiliency in yourself that it exists there to fight for you, I guess you could say. So you can disregard these negative comments because you know it's not true. I think Richard Branson has had a lot of that. I think he has a lot of resiliency in himself to continually go for that interesting idea that he sees as having merit or that he sees as having a real possibility for change, for affecting change in the world.
Nice. Speaking of him, my wife and I like going on cruises, and he's just started a Virgin Voyages, which is his first cruise ship, because he's never been on a cruise and he wants to take his 70th birthday on a cruise. So if you want to meet him, you might want to get on that cruise that he's going to be taking. But I think, when I think of this question and I listen to people talk, I have a very different viewpoint because I used to be like somebody that always looked at like the biggest name out in the field that I was interested in, and that's who I wanted to meet with. But as I've gained more experiences and talked with more people, the people that I want to connect with are the ones that are thinking like all the people that you just mentioned, but they're not famous yet. Nobody's asking to talk with them. Those are the people that I want to talk to. Those are the ones that I want to hear why they're doing what they're doing, why they want to have, make the change in the world, why they think differently from others. And those are the people that I want to connect with. So I know I didn't really follow the rules, but I think all of you mentioned at some point along the line that you guys don't follow the rules either. So I might mention one person. But that's who I want to connect with. And, there's a long story, but I'll make it very quick, about a time where I got up and spoke, and I was supposed to tell my story, and I said I didn't have a story, but what I can do is help share your story. And I still find that true today. It might not be in the same context that I said it originally, but that's what I want to do, is I want to help tell people's stories, and I want to help connect them with the right people that I think might be beneficial for them to help progress them along their journey as they're paving their own path. And so in closing here, because I know we're at the hour, and the exciting part is that we're going to do kind of a part 2 of this a little bit differently, but in 2 weeks before CESA with Vladka. So we're going to get some of the people from CESA on and have a conversation in 2 weeks. So we'll announce that soon. But what I want to leave everybody with is, you heard who all of us wanted to connect with. And if you're listening on Twitter or later, you can share this out on Twitter and just use the hashtag CEMM for Connected Educator Monthly Meetup. And what I want you to do is I want you to look at the opportunities that you have, who's in your network, who's in your community already, that you might be able to either directly connect that person to the requester, or you might be able to ask somebody that that knows that person to help connect that person. Any step closer that we can get to meeting the people that we want to meet is going to help all of us. And if you do it in a purposeful way, it helps build the bond, because you're adding value to both people. Both people respect you for doing that. And when you do that, then it comes back to you like tenfold. I even think that's like just a term that I use, but it's unbelievable when you start connecting people that helps benefit both of them, the impact that it has on you. You don't do it for that reason, but I can guarantee you will end up seeing it. So, all of us heard different people. So, think of who you know already that you might be able to make a connection with to help them get with that person. And when you start doing that, that is when the magic happens. And so I am so excited that all of us were able to get together today. I know it's afternoon for all of you now. I'm going to go have breakfast in a little bit because it's still morning, but I can show you it's not a great view, but I got the palm trees and the sun's up now. So it was still dark out when I started. So I'm glad to be here, and thank you all for joining us. And I don't know if all of you just want to say a quick goodbye, and then we can stop the recording.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. It's been cool. It's been fun. I'll see you soon, hopefully. One day in the flesh.